What's going on, guys? Welcome back to Weekly GCap, the only source you'll ever need to catch up on all the gaming news from the last week. As always, we got quite a couple stories to go through, so let's go ahead and get right into this. First things first, a new NES game is going to be releasing. Yes, you heard that right. Next year in 2024. Let me go ahead and just read the tweet. Fresh off Mix Next and published by the Mix Games, Rugrats Adventures in Game Land. Featuring unique playable babies Tommy, Chucky, Phil, and Lil. Play solo or local co-op. Toggle between retro or HD artwork, similar to like the Master Chief Collection, for example. If you guys have played that, how you can toggle between the two graphic styles, and more familiar faces. Coming to PC and consoles in 2024. And in this post, they didn't necessarily confirm that it was coming to NES until somebody asked in the comments and said, hey, that looks like a NES box. Is it coming to the NES? And they were just like, yep, it's coming to the NES. So next year, 2024, not only will this game be available on like PS4, Xbox Series, PS5, all that stuff, the Switch, PC, but it will also be coming to the NES, which is just insane. One thing worth noting is that in the NES version, you can only play with the retro graphics. The HD graphics will only be available in the new versions, but I would say that that is a very worthwhile trade-off considering it's a new NES game. And for our next story, a new TMNT game was announced, this being a tie-in with the TMNT Mutant Mayhem movie. This coming from Nintendo Life, quote, 2023 has been quite the time to be a TMNT fan, and it looks like next year will be no different, as Outright Games has today announced that it will be releasing a TMNT Mutant Mayhem game inspired by the recent film. The information that we have on the as-yet untitled game is somewhat limited, though we do know that it will be set shortly after the events of the movie and is said to have the same cartoony visual style that made the film such a hit. Yeah, let me just say, the art style in that movie was fantastic. This one is set to release at some point in 2024, so we have a bit of time before we'll need our nunchucks at the ready, end quote. Again, I mean, that's all we know about the game, but I'm very excited for this. Outright Games, they made some other more, you know, like the tie-in games for like IPs that are more geared towards children, like Paw Patrol and Peppa Pig, for example. But those games, I know I'm a grown man, but I still like playing those games. It takes me back to a simpler time with like AA games on the PS2 with licensed tie-in games like that. So I have played like their Paw Patrol games and their Peppa Pig games, okay? And honestly, they're a lot of fun, so I'm really looking forward to this one. And for our next story, this is just a quick one, but Borderlands 3 is coming to the Switch. This coming from Gamatsu, quote, publisher 2K and developer Gearbox Software will release Borderlands 3 Ultimate Edition for Switch on October 6th. For $59.99, the company's announced, end quote, as if we didn't have enough coming out in October, right? But if you have a Switch and, you know, obviously all the other Borderlands games are available on there, you do have some time. If you want to pick Borderlands 3 up but you haven't played the other ones, a month, that should be more than enough time to blast through the other Borderlands 1, 2, and pre-sequel, so 3 games before October 6th. Next up, this is just another quick thing I wanted to go over, but Starfield has released, and the reviews went live, and the player counts are insane. So first, obviously, the game went into early access on the 1st of this month, where basically anybody that pre-ordered, like, you know, like the digital deluxe version of the game was able to, you know, get early access to it, which I did take advantage of, and ooh, I'll save that for a second. But anyway, then it officially released on Wednesday, September 6th, where it also went into Game Pass, so if you have Game Pass, you can play it there. But right now, I want to go ahead and look at the Metacritic scores before we start talking about sales and all that. Right now, it is sitting at 88 on PC and 86 on Xbox, so that is very, very good. Sure, it's not sitting up at like 96 or 97 like Baldur's Gate, but 88, that's still a very respectable number, and there is potential for it to go up as people play through, because obviously Starfield is a very long time. Some people need more time to get out their reviews. But what I want to focus on here is the player count. The all-time peak, as of the time of me recording this, was 269,000, nice, and 177 players. That is insane. That is concurrent players, by the way, not total players overall, just concurrent at one time. So that is insane. As I said, I did pre-order like the digital deluxe crazy version of the game, and I ended up playing through the main story, and wow. Starfield is a masterpiece. I highly recommend it. I played through the main story, and usually with games, I beat the main story and I move on, but with this one, I beat the main story and I kept playing, and it's just, there was so much here, there's so much to chew on, there's so much to mess around with between the ship building and the factions and the side quests. It's just, there's so much here. It is a great game. If you've even been slightly considering this game, I'd say go for a Game Pass subscription. And then from there, if you want to add it to the collection, then it may be worth putting down even more money, or just, you know, paying for Game Pass until you finish up with this game. But yeah, highly recommend it. Next up, the PlayStation Portal release date was announced. This coming from the PlayStation Twitter account, quote, the PlayStation Portal remote player launches starting November 15th, end quote. So yeah, I'm sure at least 2 of you out there are looking forward to this one. And for our next story, unfortunately, Alone in the Dark has been delayed to 2024, but this one makes sense. The game itself seems like it's actually finished. They're just delaying it so then they don't, you know, have to compete against all the other games coming out in October. But anyway, this is coming from the Alone in the Dark Twitter account. Quote, "Horror games thrive on the eerie embrace of solitude, something that is impossible to achieve in a gaming month as busy as October. To ensure a breathtaking experience for everyone, we have made the decision to move the release of #Alone in the Dark to January 16, 2024, end quote. Again, considering how many games are releasing in October, I think this was for the best. Next up, we got a sales update for Spyro Reignited Trilogy. Obviously, this came out a couple of years ago. It's a remake of the original Spyro trilogy on the PS1s. Fantastic games. I would love to see some of the other Spyro games get some love too. Like, could we see like maybe a Hero's Tale remake or redo? That game was actually really good. But anyway, this coming from PSU, quote, "Developer Toys for Bob did an excellent job remaking the classic Spyro games and the Spyro Reignited Trilogy, which the studio was proud to announce has officially sold more than 10 million copies globally," end quote. So that is amazing for Spyro. Now, Crash Bandicoot got Crash 4. It's about time. Are we gonna get Spyro? And if they do a Spyro game, how are they going to do it? Because obviously there was a lot of other Spyro games that came out. Obviously we had like the Legend of Spyro games, a Hero's Tale like I had mentioned, a bunch of other spin-offs, and the whole Skylanders thing. So will they just directly follow up Spyro 3? Well, maybe will they do a reboot? I'm not sure. But all I know is that we do need a new Spyro game, so please. Next up, another sales update. The Final Fantasy Pixel Remasters have officially sold 3 million copies. This coming from the Final Fantasy Twitter account. Quote, "A victory fanfare awaits. The Final Fantasy Pixel Remastered series has now reached 3 million copies sold across PS4, Nintendo Switch, Steam, and mobile. Thank you so much for your support and for sharing this EXP with us," end quote. So, yeah, that's awesome. And hey, the way I see it, since this has now gone on to sell 3 million copies, which is amazing for remasters of classic games like this, to me this shows that there is a place for those old school like 16-bit turn-based JRPGs, and furthermore, even more proof of this, is the fact that Sea of Stars has been selling so well despite the fact that it went into PlayStation Plus Extra and Game Pass on day one. It still managed to sell like, what, 100,000 copies on the first day? So, yeah, there is definitely still a place for these old school 16-bit, even if not 16-bit, but these classic JRPG turn-based games, so sort of something like a Dragon Quest XI even. So, hopefully, while I do like these new real-time action games that Final Fantasy has been making, I would like to see some classic turn-based games be thrown back into the fold. Next up, Final Fantasy 16 DLC has officially been confirmed. This coming from Gamatsu, quote, "Hello everyone, this is Naoki Yoshida, producer for Final Fantasy 16. It's been just over 2 months since the game's release, and we've received an enormous amount of feedback from players around the world. The dev team and I have also been watching your streams and videos, paying special attention to what everyone thinks of FF16. We put our all into creating this game, so it's a real joy to see so many different reactions. And so, as an expression of our sincerest gratitude, we are releasing a free update available for download today. There are 2 main parts of this update," and then he goes on to talk about it. Basically, it's just like new skins, new weapons, and stuff like that. So if you want that, you're able to go ahead and, you know, hop on the game, download the update, and play it. Or if you're on PS5, which we'll talk about that in a minute as to why I'm specifying on PS5. It's pretty exciting news right there. But then when you scroll down a bit, it goes on to say, "As I mentioned earlier, we've seen so many opinions and reactions from our community of FF16 players. But one thing that came through particularly strongly was how people wanted to see more of Velicia's story and spend more time with her inhabitants. To accommodate, the development team has started work on 2 installments of paid downloadable content." So, originally, they were talking about, we're not sure if we're going to do DLC here, but it's officially confirmed we're getting FF16 DLC, and not just that, we are getting 2 expansions, which is awesome. And then when you scroll down a little bit, this is really exciting, but finally, while FF16 was released as a PS5 exclusive, we are aware that many of you have been asking for a PC version. So allow me to take this opportunity to officially announce that development on a PC version is currently underway. I hope to be able to give you more info on both the upcoming downloadable content and the PC version before the end of the year, so please stay tuned, end quote. Obviously, this is really exciting once it drops on PC. The doors to possibilities, it's just, they're wide open. The possibilities are endless between mods and just like being able to crank up graphics to the max, seeing what the game could look like at like 4K, 120 hertz. And again, that's going to add so much to the longevity of the game, because with Final Fantasy, it's one of those things, you know, it's a long RPG. And when it comes to RPGs, they're a hot commodity when it comes to the modding scene. So I'm really excited to see what people whip up with this one. And yeah, can't wait for the PC release. And for our next story, it seems like Star Wars Jedi Survivor is finally playable. So if you remember, this game came out in April, and honestly, I can't believe it's been that long already. It doesn't feel like it's been that long since we had first talked about it. But man, launch talk about a rough launch. And yeah, it seems like it took 5 months for this game to finally be playable, because with the most recent patch, it seems like they finally addressed a lot of things. The feedback seems to be pretty positive so far. And again, man, it's really a shame, because I was really looking forward to this one, and then it came out in the state that it did. Anyway, let's go ahead and go over the blog just real quick. We'll skim through a couple of things. So patch 7 details September 5th. Patch 7 for Star Wars Jedi Survivor arrives today for PC, PS5, and Xbox Series X and S. And also remember, this game is also going to be coming out on Xbox One and PS4. Yes, even the base Xbox One from 2013, the VCR model. Very scared to see what that's going to turn out like. But anyway, this patch introduces several performance-related improvements on PS5 and Xbox Series X and S, including Performance Mode, which has been completely reworked to substantially improve player experience. And then they go through to talk about disabling ray tracing and 60 FPS in Performance Mode, and variable refresh rates, and crash fixes, bug fixes, etc. Then there's a note at the bottom just saying cinematics in Star Wars Jedi Survivor on console are locked to 30 frames per second. Thank you all for the continued support you've given Star Wars Jedi Survivor while we've been hard at work on patches. As always, let us know if you run into any additional issues, which I'm sure everyone will. Thankfully, now that this game is actually, fixed, if you've been waiting to dive into this one, I can highly recommend the game. It is a very good game, and it's just a shame that its legacy is now forever tarnished by such a disastrous launch. Was it on the caliber of launch of, say, CP 2077? No, but it was up there. It was a disastrous launch. It was absolutely terrible. And I can only hope for better in the future, because it's really a shame that a game from such a famous IP had to release in the state that it did. That's all I'm going to say on that. Let's move on to the next story. Next up, this is just a really interesting one I wanted to highlight. NBA 2K24's file size is going to be over 161 gigabytes. This coming from Virgin Spyro's on Reddit. Quote, apparently game size 161 gigabyte for Xbox. I bet at the end of the year it would be 200 gigabytes plus, end quote. And then the picture below that, which shows, yes, it is 161.4 gigabytes for the new NBA game. You guys, you devs, what happened? You remember back in the day when devs used to optimize their games, used to compress their games, used to do things to make their games, I don't know, like, actually fit onto one disc or not be this many hundreds of gigabytes? Like, what is even happening? I mean, you could compress some audio files or do something, like, at least try to do something, because, dude, this is ridiculous. The base versions of the consoles, PS5 has 825 gigabytes, and the Xbox Series X has 1 terabyte. This is literally like a sixth of that storage on the Xbox side of things, and about a fifth on the PS5 side of things. You could download 5 NBAs and that would be it. Yeah, this is just crazy. Let's move on. And for our next story, I am so excited about this one, but it is confirmed we are getting more information about the Indiana Jones game next year. So this was an interview that took place over on Esquire, I'm not really sure how to say that. Quote, as for what's for after Starfield, Howard and his team are tackling multiple projects at once. The Elder Scrolls 6, working on the Fallout TV show, which is led by Westworld's showrunners Jonathan Nolan and Lisa Joy, and an Indiana Jones game. Raiders of the Lost Ark is Howard's favorite indie adventure. In 2009, he pitched Lucasfilm on an Indiana Jones game, which has always been on his bucket list. His first dog's name was Indy after all. It didn't work out back then, but in the years since, Disney decided to back Howard's initial idea. The game is being developed by Machine Games, a Swedish studio under the same company. They're known for making Wolfenstein, which also involves fighting against N-word. Not that N-word, but the bad people from World War II. I can't say that for obvious reasons. In other words, a natural fit. Quote, I am a giant Indiana Jones fan. It can be brought to video games in a unique way, Howard tells me, but he refuses to go into the details, only offering the game is obviously you're exploring stuff. It's about him, so if you're playing the game, how do you feel that you are indeed playing versus just watching? Howard would talk more about Indiana Jones. I can tell he really wants to, but he's not allowed. Instead, as I exit his office, he flashes that smile, quote, we'll talk next year, end quote. So, yeah, I don't have much more to say to this because obviously there's not too much to go off of here, but I'm really excited to hear more next year, and hopefully we can start to see what this game is going to be. Is it going to be first person? Is it going to be third person? Is it going to be linear? Is it going to be non-linear? Is this going to be one of those things where it's a fixed linear story game? Is there going to be a lot of branching paths? Like, what is going to go on here? There's so many different possibilities, and then, like, DLC down the line. I could imagine just, like, I'm sure the DLCs for this game, if they really put their heart and soul to this, could be on, like, the level of, like, Blood and Wine for, like, The Witcher 3, you know what I'm saying? Because, like, if you know the Indiana Jones IP, you know just how much potential is here for this game, so I'm really excited for this one. I can't wait to hear more about it. Next up, we got the September Xbox Game Pass games for you guys. Those being Grease, or Grist, however you're supposed to say that. A really phenomenal indie game, highly recommended. Obviously Starfield, which is out now, Solar Ash, and Lies of P, which is looking like an absolutely amazing Souls-like. Can't wait to play this one. But yeah, solid lineup, especially with Starfield right there. Man, even if Starfield was the only thing we got this month, I'd call it a good month. So yeah, solid lineup. Next up, we got an update for the new Nintendo Switch Online games that were added to the service. This coming from Nintendo of America's Twitter account. Quote, 4 classic titles are now live for hashtag Nintendo Switch Online members. For the SNES, Kirby Star Stacker. For the NES, Joy Mech Fight, Downtown Neketsu March, Super Awesome Field Day. And then for the Game Boy Color, Quest for Camelot. So yeah, those are all pretty solid games, especially Quest for Camelot. That game is actually a lot of fun. I highly recommend that one. Kirby Star Stacker is also another really good one. It's one of those like typical like match 3 type games, but it's a good one just to turn on, turn your brain off, just kill some time. It's a lot of fun. And for our last story, this one makes me really like actually devastatingly sad. I love the Saints Row series, okay? Even the new one, even 2022 Saints Row, as controversial as that is to say, okay? But I love the Saints Row series, everything from Saints Row 1 to 2 to 3 to 4 to the spin-offs like Get Out of Hell and all the DLCs, and it's just even Agents of Mayhem, which was like in the Saints Row universe. I love this IP and this universe and this world so much, and along with that, I love all the other games that Volition has made, like Red Faction Guerrilla, for example. That game was absolutely phenomenal, and there's a remaster available on like Steam and Xbox One and PS4 and all that. If you would, if you haven't played the game before, I highly recommend it. But unfortunately, it seems like Volition had to close its doors, and I'm not gonna lie, I don't get too emotional. I mean, I've gotten emotional over a couple studios closing down, but I actually cried when I heard about this one. And I'm sure you can even hear it now. Like, I'm trying to hold some stuff back just because of how much these games mean to me. But anyway, let's go ahead and read this. That's coming from Volition. The Volition team has proudly created world-class entertainment for fans around the globe for 30 years. We've been driven by a passion for our community and always work to deliver joy, surprise, and delight. This past June, Embracer Group announced a restructuring program to strengthen Embracer and maintain its position as a leader in the video game industry. As part of that program, they evaluated strategic and operational goals and made the difficult decision to close Volition effective immediately. To help our team, we are working to provide job assistance and help smooth the transition for our Volition family members. We thank our customers and fans around the world for all the love and support over the years. You will always be in our hearts, Volition Games. So, yeah, that is really sad. I mean, I don't even know what to say about that. I mean, say what you will about Saints Row 2022, and it's obvious that Saints Row 2022 is the reason that their doors had to be closed in the first place. But I mean, they've made so many incredible games just beyond Saints Row, like I was saying before, like with Red Faction Guerrilla. And if you take the time to like scroll through all the games that they've had a hand in or have like firsthand developed, they're behind so many amazing games. They have such a talented team there, or they did. And honestly, at this point, all I can say to Volition is thank you for all of the amazing games and experiences and memories that you've given and gifted to all of us through your games. And I hope for nothing but the best for all of you guys. I hope you all are able to find new work. I hope you all are doing okay, and yeah, let's hope that, I mean, how often do companies actually come back in the gaming industry, right? Like, I can't even think off the top of my head of a time that it's ever happened. Sure, there's been comeback stories, but not really for companies that have shut down and then come back, so here's hoping maybe one day, maybe there's enough outcry, maybe Volition or enough of these devs could come back and make a new studio, or Volition itself could come back. I know it's unlikely, but man, it makes me so sad seeing the studio die. Again, I hope for nothing but the best for you guys. And again, thank you for all the amazing games and memories that you have gifted to gamers around the world. We will miss you. I mean, I already miss you, and you'll forever live in our hearts. Thank you. But anyway, that is all the stories that I have for you guys this week. So now I'd definitely love to hear from you guys. I know we talked about a lot this week, but what are your thoughts on everything that we talked about? Whether it's the Indiana Jones game, or, Starfield reviews and the crazy player counts there, or Volition shutting down, whatever it is, whatever you think, I'd definitely love to hear from you guys. But anyway, this is Weekly GCap. New episodes go live every single Friday at 9 a.m. Eastern, so if you want to catch them as soon as they go live, well then, I know when to be here. But anyways, that's going to do it for me, guys. Thank you guys for watching. Have an amazing day and an amazing weekend. Stay beautiful. I love you all. Peace.